BYDFi is a crypto exchange on desktop and mobile where you can spot trade, futures trade, use leverage tokens, and copy the trades of top trade. There's hundreds of crypto available on their spot exchange, as well as a free test account so you can practice futures trading without getting wrecked. BYDFi. Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a look at some of these charts. We're just going to look at Bitcoin and the dominance chart really, just as we're moving into Monday. New week, new opportunities. Like what I said yesterday, I know some people find it hard to maybe even just understand what it is, what I'm trying to say here. I'll just reiterate it on this video, which is effectively Bitcoin looks good for price action and effectively price discovery, I suppose, to an extent. But the momentum is still slowing down. So with that, I think we're going to have a bigger pullback before we continue on, because it is a good chart. I'm not taking anything away from the chart. The chart is good. So I think just people sometimes find it difficult to understand, or maybe they just are still on the learning process, which is absolutely fine. Now, when I say that Bitcoin's going to pull back by 15%, roughly, or maybe 20%, that's absolutely so normal for that sort of thing to happen. It's absolutely, it's just the most normal thing in the world. And so on, I just had a look at the comments from yesterday's video. Someone goes, do you think that the ETFs would be made if they thought there was going to be a dump? What, of 20%? Of course, it's all perfectly normal to have a 20% or more dump. It's no problem. It's not even a dump. That's a pullback. Everything is relevant to depending on the volatility of the chart. So, like, if you had an ETF on something that basically is pretty much hardly ever moves, you'd be like, well, yeah, 20% is a big deal because it's taken like 18 months for it to move up by 20%. But Bitcoin goes up hundreds of percent, pulls back by 20%. It's absolutely perfectly normal. It's all relative to the volatility of the chart. So don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say here. I'm not saying Bitcoin's going to zero, far from it. I wouldn't be making these videos and trading these charts and hodling, I don't want to tell you how many Bitcoins I've got, but I've got quite a lot, right? I've got a lot of skin in the game here, if I didn't believe that it's all going to be okay. But 20% dump for Bitcoin is likely to see a 20 to 40 or more % dump for altcoins. And because we trust in this chart and how it looks, as well as the other charts, Ethereum and the individual altcoins and the dominance chart and the total 2, total 3 chart, all these other charts that we look at, then this is why I'm saying if we get that dump, then it's a buy the dip. A BTFD is what we would say. So I'm not a sensational YouTube. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just plotting opportunities so I can continue to trade them, so I can feed me and my family. That's all it is. That's all I'm doing here. Right. So with that, Bitcoin does look good. Oh, and by the way, there is a lot of other YouTube channels out there that do say a lot of nonsense. I've come to realize, and they're more popular than me. So if you do like my technical analysis, if you do like my take on the market, if you do find value to it, then just have a little like and a subscribe. It helps my channel, and it takes away from the people that don't know what they're talking about, yet influence people to lose all their money. Right, so it is the same as yesterday. We're continuing to move up with 1, 2 and a giant drive of bearish divergence here. On the daily, same thing going on over here on the 4 hourly, bang, bang, bang. It's hard to escape these things. Even on the 1 hourly, we've got 1 and 2. It's not quite so bad. It's also here on the 12 hourly, bang, bang, bang. So what I would consider to be the shorter term, medium to shorter term time frames, there's bearish divergence across the board, which means that we're losing momentum on the way up, and it would lead into a pullback or a dump, not a crash. Honestly, terminology is the problem here. One person's dump is another person's pullback, which is another person's crash. All depends, I suppose, on where you've bought the coin, because someone's going to buy the top on this before it dumps, and they're going to feel pretty bad about that. To them, yeah, it probably would be a crash. But to most of us who bought it way back down yonder, all the way back down yonder, it's just a pullback. So language is open to interpretation, most likely to do with where it is that you bought your Bitcoin or your whatever it is that you've bought. I'm going to call it a pullback, although I am thinking that if we did make it up to the top of this Bollinger Band, we're talking It's 73,000. A pullback down to the Bollinger Band Center is 18% at this point now. If we were to move up to there and down to there, and again, these are uptrending, so they move every day, that is a pullback. But the guy who buys the top, wherever that might be, it will be a crash to them. That is a crash to them. And look, I'm still looking for it to get bought back up and move back up. This is really good chart. There's nothing. And the main thing I would say is that, yeah, we got the bearish divergence on the money flow index. We have broken out of the resistance, though, I have to say. So that is good, but it's still bearish divergence. If we start to clear the 83, then it starts to look better. But I think the best thing to do is to not ignore, but look at that as different to how it was in the past. The volume on Bitcoin these days is way bigger than the volume it was back around here, which is the most similar scenario to what's going on here. And maybe this is probably a very similar scenario and it's different. It is different, so we can't really look at it. There's a lot of differences, more differences than similarities. So I'm not willing to really look at this and go, oh, here we are, and again, because it is different this time. And recognizing that the RSI is not suffering any bearish divergence whatsoever, it's just continuing with quite a nice pumperoo. So everything's looking pretty sweet. We close here. This will be the highest candle body close on Bitcoin's history ever. Makes you feel like we've got further to run. The main problem, I would say, is going to be the dominance chart, because if we were looking to trade altcoins, then Bitcoin is your main indicator. So if Bitcoin pulls back and finds support, we can buy certain altcoins. Not all altcoins are created equal. You buy the ones with the best setups that have pulled back to relevant supports. They will outperform Bitcoin most likely. And this chart is Bitcoin dominance on the daily, looking to see if we can break out amongst this area, because below this area it's technically resistance. Above 53.72%, it's broken the resistance and we move back up. This is just the daily, by the way, and the daily is a bullish chart, so it still favors Bitcoin at this moment in time. 4 hourly, it's sort of trying to break bullish as well on this one. So again, not massively bullish or bearish, but the 4 hourly favors the bulls. The weekly also favors the bulls, I would say, as well. Now, the main portion of this chart where I'll be really getting excited about altcoins, and I've been happy to rotate more Bitcoin into altcoins, is around this resistance here, the 57.5% dominance. Found a massive support on it here when we moved down into it. There has been areas of support around here, and we have found support here before the big breakdown. So this would be the first major area where a really big alt season could take place from, like a really big one. And if for whatever reason the market sort of peaks and dumps, or Bitcoin continues to remain strong, if we ever get up to 64% dominance, this would be it. I would be looking to rotate probably as much as 4 or 5 Bitcoins into altcoins at this level, because this would likely give the largest, more long-lasting alt season that we can enjoy. You know, the higher we go, the better the fall, and this is why we made so much money when we rotated back over here back in the olden days. This was ace. Every time we came down to a support, we went back into some Bitcoin just in case. We come down to the next level. Okay, let's keep trading alts. Okay, buy some Bitcoin here just in case. Okay, we're going down. Rotate that Bitcoin into altcoins. Okay, here we go. Back into Bitcoins. Okay, we're going down, and then that's it. We basically have spent all our life down here, haven't we? Really, and it's been an okay trading environment. It's not been perfect, but it's still a relevant chart, I would say. But the big rotations would be here, and I would rotate a couple of Bitcoins over here. So maybe a few Bitcoins over here, maybe 4 or 5 over here, because the higher we go, the bigger the gains. You can turn 1 Bitcoin into 4 or 5, maybe even more, quite quickly. So that is the name of the game, really, when you're looking at this chart. That's what it's all about. But right at this very moment in time, it does look like Bitcoin dominance wants to move back up to the resistance, and if it breaks the resistance, I will get excited, because, like I say, we've got a fair few Bitcoins I'm happy to rotate at higher levels. Right, outside of that then, what have we got? We'll have a quick look at Ethereum. So Ethereum is different to Bitcoin because this is your Ethereum on the daily with no bearish divergence whatsoever. We've got it on the 4-hourly. We do have some bearish divergence on the 4-hourly, but it's not pronounced, not in any way the same as Bitcoin's. So Ethereum is strong, which still looks good for alts, which is why I think any dip given to us by Bitcoin would be a buy the dip on altcoins, because Ethereum is propping up the altcoin market, giving the impression that it's strong and ready to run. And there's quite a lot of altcoins that we've looked at all over the place on the Patreon live stream, which you should join. You know, we've looked at quite a lot of them, and as much as we are anticipating a pullback into these areas, 30-40% perhaps, we still are focusing on buying those dips rather than buying a Bitcoin dip, for instance. We're looking at the altcoin dips because, they'll be much larger and their bounces will be much bigger. So it's a tradable market, definitely, but the indicator that the spark is going to be from Bitcoin. So using Bitcoin to tell us where we are moving down to. And look, I am not being sensational when I'm talking about a pullback. I know it upsets people when I say something like, 20% is likely. It's not a big deal. Now, that's 18% is what it looks like it could do if we were to go to the top of the Bollinger Band and back down again. That's nothing, because we've made hundreds of percent already. This is crypto. It's a risk to reward is amazing. Buying in at 20,000 was currently pushing 70,000. I can happily sit and look at a 20% pullback. I know that that's obviously, depending on how many Bitcoins you own, that's quite a lot of dollars that you'll see go down by, but realistically, compared to what it used to be, when Bitcoin was, I still have Bitcoin that I bought when it was down at 4,000. I've still got plenty of Bitcoin that I bought from back down there. Same thing with all kinds of altcoins, really. I bought Matic between 1 and 2 cents. So when that goes up and when it goes down, my balance really does, shift around. It's not something that is for the faint of heart, really. When you see, Matic's up 100x at the moment from those entry points. So obviously, every time it goes up like 1 or 2 cents, that's an enormous amount of money for me. Because I see, basically my investment every time it goes up like 2 cents. That's my investment doubling again and again and again. So it's just kind of crazy when you get into these high numbers. But all I'm trying to say is you've got to have the patience and you've got to have the emotional strength to see that sort of thing take place on your balance. And if you don't, it usually means that you have no plan as to where it is that you want to sell, or if you want to sell, or you've literally, you're void of plans, and you're allowing the balance, your USD or your euro or pound balance, influence your thoughts rather than the trading of the chart itself. So that's the main thing I would say. It's just the same as yesterday, to be honest with you. It's no difference. Sunday can be a bit of a weird day, especially because the main reason is that crypto is a 24-hour traded market, and traditional markets are 9 to 5, basically, depending, obviously. So some of them are longer than that, but you know what I'm saying. They're weekdays, 9 to 5 for the most part. So we're looking for tomorrow's open to see how the S&P and the Nasdaq are going to start behaving, because again, they look quite hot and they will influence the crypto market. So it's not all about looking at Bitcoin going, the pillar of strength, completely invincible and cannot be touched or changed by any other thing in the world ever. No. Everything is tied in. So if the rest of the markets decide they are going to pull back, then this will pull back too. And look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there are some there are some serious things going on in the world right now. And we have to take that on board as well. We do have to digest that when we're thinking about risk, Look at it like this. If there was a volcano erupting in your back garden, would you go out to mow the lawn? Probably not. You probably wouldn't do that, would you? The risk to reward does not, it doesn't add up. So I'm not saying it's quite that bad, but you do have to think about that. So, I mow my lawn every Friday. I'm going back out there now. It's Friday. Well, hang on a minute. Yeah, it's Friday. Well, the grass is long. It needs to get cut. Yeah, but there's a volcano out there today. Yeah, it's fine. I've done it every Friday. It's always been fine on a Friday. right? Anyway, I like to use an analogy just to put it out there, but I mean it's kind of a little bit how geopolitical tensions and global conflicts are starting to feel a little bit more relevant to how they might influence price action across the board for every market. So you do have to start to think about those things sometimes. Then they are often not present on the chart. Why would they be? Why would they be? Anyway, I'll leave it with you there. There's nothing much more to say. We're going to wait for the US markets to open tomorrow afternoon. That's going to show us a lot. Until then, I'll leave it with you there. Long story short, we're looking for Bitcoin to make its way up into the lower 70s and pull back at some point and probably find support around the low 60s. So it's a $10,000 move, over a $10,000 move really from top to bottom is what we're looking for. And it would just be a buy the dip, a BTFD. Anyway, like and subscribe. I hope you have a nice day and take it easy.